Hello people. So I have this jumper that I had started taking apart before I turned on the camera because of general incompetence. It is a jumper that I had gotten from my sister. There's a lot. So was the back of the jumper. This is some of the front of the jumper. And these are the sleeves. There's honestly so much yarn here that I thought I maybe could make a jumper dress. So now I'm going to try make a jumper dress.
The first thing I needed to do was weigh the yarn to see whether or not I'd actually have enough of the stuff to make a dress. As I lost a considerable amount of fibre winding it into balls, I wound it into balls first. Again, not with any of it recorded on camera. Apparently I thought this video would be better without showing any of the really satisfying stuff. You're welcome. A swatch was made, washed, blocked, measured and then weighed to get the grams per centimetre squared. I then calculated the probable surface area of the planned dress to figure out the rough approximation of the grams per yarn I need. This was then coded up and put onto my web app as I thought it would be a useful tool. The jumper design was a test knit of the round neck style calculated using my website pigknits.com. I tend to try and code up a potential style first, then test repeatedly on the same jumper, tweaking the code as I go along for better fit or removing the utter bullshit that turns up. Bullshit turns up a lot because coding while under the influence is apparently really fun for me, but then sober me has to go through whatever I did and she is rarely happy with the result and sometimes accidentally lets nonsense slip through. I never code actual work while drunk, just this website. Even drunk me isn't stupid enough for that. None of the full-length sleeves I had tried with the test site I had enjoyed. They all bunched weirdly under the armpits, so I recoded that so the arm design would actually be generated totally separate to the rest of the body. I also included short rows on the shoulders for a better fit, which let me tell you was ridiculously hard to work out how to turn into code.
Hey guys, so last night I managed to get this much done. I'm gonna try on to show that. As you can see, I've put a lifeline through it because I'm planning to take it all apart. This is where the short row shoulder is. The bits I'm happy about is I am really happy about how these short row shoulders came out. They are curving properly. The bits I'm actually quite unhappy about is that this is not exactly how this is meant to be sitting. It's actually meant to be sitting like this, and that's actually quite uncomfortable. So I looked up how to fix that, and I have to add some short rows into the back, which I didn't know was a thing. Probably should do research before doing this stuff. So none of my other patterns is required for short rows because there's already some shaping happening with the actual pattern pieces itself. This one requires more shaping.
I tried to show the process of taking it apart but was still using this setup where I cannot see what is actually being filmed as the screen is blocked by the tripod, which resulted in this lovely shot. Such a treat.
Hey, so I have added everything I need to into the pattern. So there are now short rows in the back. I don't know if it works, but maybe this evening I'll start knitting when I get tired. So that will be my aim, and hopefully I'll at least have the back of the neck done by tomorrow, even if I don't have the shoulders included in it as well. See you then.
1 week later.
Hi guys, I've taken this apart and remade it a bunch of times, but it's different now. So the biggest difference is that there's short row shaping in the back of the neck, meaning this area here isn't so uncomfy. It looks very similar right now, but it isn't as uncomfy. There's obviously short row shaping still in the shoulders. There is a different type of increase style here. This is make one left, make one right. And I have added 2 strands of yarn into the neckband instead of just 1 strand of yarn. So my plan is to carry on knitting until I put the sleeves on a stitch holder, finish off this ball of yarn down the torso, then go back to the sleeves, knit up the sleeves before knitting on the torso. This is to make sure that I have enough yarn to do the sleeves after I've done the torso, because I actually want to have the torso really, really long, maybe longer than I have calculated, and it would be better that I have the sleeves done first so I'm not trying to save any yarn for any potential sleevage.
I sort of regret not doing something more interesting like a cabling design on the dress. However, this was above anything else a test knit for the round neck style. Cabling would have taken too long. This is the only test knit I actually wear. All of the other ones were immediately frogged and the yarn used for something else or put aside for a future project. It's possible that I'll go back and change the style later, but therein lies the beauty of knitting. As long as it's not felted, and this being plastic cannot felt, there is nothing stopping me from taking it apart and making something else. I have no real set style. I like playing around with clothes and experimenting. However, I don't like fast fashion for environmental reasons, and second-hand shops, while fantastic, are not the most reliable for finding an exact item, so if I wanted to play with shapes and colour I can, as long as it's knitted anyway.
So I finished the sleeves, which I'm really happy about because the sleeves almost always get done last and they take like months and months and months to do when they get done last because I just don't do them. But I have done them now. Oh God, I'm stuck. Now I'm going to finish off the rest of the torso. I was a little bit worried when doing the sleeves because I used a bit more yarn than I expected the sleeves would take. So that was a little bit worrying, but I'm hoping to get it down to my mid-thigh. I don't know if that's in the frame, but I'm pointing at my mid-thigh. And that is what I'm hoping to do from this. That's midway through the project update. Happy with the sleeves. I think that's the end of this bit. I am going to do...
And then the clip cuts out, so you'll just have to guess what I do. My guess is more knitting, but this was filmed in October, and I don't remember October.
Morning, apologies for pyjamas, but I have been sick recently and I'm still a bit sick. Not COVID, I have a tooth infection. Anyway, I've knit down to the hips. I'm going to feed a lifeline through it.
I put in a lifeline because at the time of filming I still wasn't sure whether or not I would have enough yarn to get the length I wanted in the dress, and if I didn't, the lifeline would create a handy little save point in my work where I could go back and turn it into a jumper no hassle at all.
Also going to say that I briefly put this down and started to work on Tom's jumper. I realised what working with actual yarn felt like again, and oh boy am I looking forward to this project being done. This isn't necessarily a particularly unpleasant feeling, but it does not glide smoothly or easily because this is not slipping off these needles.
I ended up binding off this dress 3 separate times. The first time I only just lost a game of yarn chicken. Second, it wasn't remotely stretchy, and the third time was just right. And after weaving in all the ends, the dress was finished. Full disclosure, this was done in October and it is now January, so quite clearly I am on top of stuff. However, the distance between making it and now actually does give this sort of review a lot more context. For one, the yarn started off with a very fluffy texture and after a number of washes loses that fluffy texture. I didn't know this because I only washed the swatch once, and I have washed this many times because I wear this dress all the time. It is so comfy. It isn't the most flattering thing I own. I really enjoy wearing yellow, but I don't think yellow really enjoys being worn by me. I also like that I decided to leave this hem as a sort of plain stocking stitch because the way it curls up I think is quite fun. I'd like it to be a little bit longer, to be honest. Like, it's fine. I've worn it outside a number of times and I think just for my own personal comfort I'd like if it was just that touch longer. And fortunately I have tons of yarn left, which, as I thought at one point I wasn't going to have enough yarn to make it a dress, is pretty good news. Honestly though, making this dress ended up being way more of a learning experience than I expected it to be. I learned so much. I learned, like, the smallest things I learned were just different types of increases and decreases when trying to figure out which increase and decrease would be the best to not show anything through. I learned so many different types of bind-off techniques. And I learned that human necks are really stupid and that I would absolutely have to account for that in my pattern. I added so much to my program way more than any other project I have had has added to the program on an individual level. I figured out how to do short rows on the sleeves, I figured out how to do short rows on the back of the neck. I figured out that secondhand jumpers are genuinely a reasonable source of yarn. Yes, the yarn isn't particularly ideal to work with, but you can absolutely get something from it. I turned what was a secondhand jumper into a dress, and I now wear the dress, whereas I would not have worn the secondhand jumper. This to me is good news. And it feels like every single thing I make, it improves both my knitting and my programming, which just feels great. I also learned that I definitely need to be a little bit more organised when it comes to, well, filming. So that's all I have to say. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram, which is going to be down here. If you want to make this, the jumper part of the dress can be found on my website pigknits.com. And as I found out, it will accept any kind of yarn. Bye!
Look at this fucking sheep.